Hello and welcome back to another video on my channel, PokePidge. Today I'm going to be going through countries that I think could be good for a Pokemon region. So far we've had regions based around sort of Japanese islands, around New York, France, Hawaii, but where else could be good for a region? What other parts of the world have good potential? Let's go through a few today. Without further ado, let's get into it. Number 10 for me could be Spain. The Sagrada Familia is too big for a gym, but it could be a good home to a legendary. You know, remember you got like the tin burnt tower that Ho-Oh is in? You can have a similar situation here in Spain and just have a legendary there. Don't quite know what legendary it would be, haven't thought about it in that much detail, but still, it's got some potential. And as well as that, you've got the Costa del Sol. A beach route could be quite interesting, walking along the coast rather than just having a bit of the coast on a route or a town or something. You could actually have a beach route. But not only that, you've got the running of the bulls. I can see a good Tauros versus Bouffalont type battle going on here. Maybe homing a normal type gym where you've got a double battle. One's got a Bouffalont, one's got a Tauros. Something could be happening there. It's got potential. It's worth a go. Next up, in the number 9 spot, I've put India. India has got an absolutely rich culture, let's not lie about that. And with that, of course, you've got the Taj Mahal. Just look at it. I mean, if that's not going to be a centre point in a central town of a central region, then I don't know what is. I'm not entirely sure if this is too big for a gym or not, but either way, it should be a very good location to explore. I don't think it should be home to a legendary. I think it should be more of a coming together, a community type place. Having a legendary or a gym there might be a little bit strange. You could follow the sort of Generation 5 type system of having a gym in the back of a building like they do in a museum and things like that, but it's got good potential to be something. And not only that, you've also got the Ganges. If any region needs a surfing route, the Ganges surely provides that. There's been a hell of a lot of speculation that it's got super bugs in it though. It's quite dirty water, so you can imagine Pokemon like a Grimer or a Toxapex, Marini, you know, having the Ganges as their home, or at least a route based on the Ganges as their home. You know, lots of poisonous water types. Obviously you've got Tentacool in there as well. Perfect place for it. So that's another good idea for a region, I think. And for number 8, I've put Egypt. There is no question that Egypt has got history. Heaps and heaps and heaps of history. I mean, that alone can give you a unique style for the region in the same way Sun and Moon styles itself off of Hawaii. This gives it a potentially good sort of evil team as well. You could have a Team Pharaoh that are built on history and want to resurrect a Pokemon from history, maybe even from a tomb, like in a pyramid or something. I don't know, there's potential for that. And if not, you could have those pyramids used as a sort of ground type gym. That would be brilliant. And even have like the specialist Pokemon of there to be a Sphinx type Pokemon. You know, you could be like a ground ghost type or a ground psychic type. Either way, have that Pokemon in there in a pyramid gym. That sounds fantastic. You could also use a different sand type Pokemon in the Pokemon gym, you know, like Hippowdon or Palisand, for example. You know, so there is potential there in Egypt. And for number 7, I have put Brazil. This may surprise a few of you, because obviously it hasn't got as much history as somewhere like Egypt or India, for example, but just the location of Brazil is rich with potential. Of course, you've got somewhere like Christ the Redeemer. I don't think this should be an accessible location though. I think it should be somewhere you can go and visit. It's going to have a bit of history around it, but not somewhere you can actually explore. Brazil has an area called the Meeting of the Waters, which is an anomaly where basically two waters meet, as you can tell here. This would be a fantastic place for two routes to meet, or at least have a split of water and have two different types in each, you know, like more pure types over in one side, like a, I don't know, like a Goldeen or a Finian or something, and then in the other side, similar to the India and Ganges, have the more poisonous types, you know, like Marinis and Tentacles, and maybe even a Grimer like Stunfisk in there. I hate Stunfisk. But either way, it could be a lovely little sort of meeting of routes. Where Hoenn, of course, had loads of different routes based around the water, it was a little bit indistinguishable on which route you were in, but it still had them. This could have a really good distinction of dirty water, clean water, or at least two different colours. And of course, let's not forget the fact that Brazil has the Amazon rainforest. That is rich in potential for towns, for routes, for an art style, for Pokémon mainly. A lot of the species that live in the Amazon rainforest have been made already as Pokémon, you know, like the dart frogs and the toucans, but still, something can be found there, something can be made from it, and I think there's a lot of potential in that one. But there's more potential in the next country. And that next country is China. Of course, China has got its own history and its own unique sort of art style. You've already got a little bit of that with the Sprout Tower in Generation 2, but imagine an entire region based off of this sort of look. First of all, the Great Wall of China could well be a very good route. I'm not saying the start of the wall to the end could be the whole route, but imagine you start somewhere down here on the map, you know, you're starting this side, and then you do a quarter of the Great Wall of China. You can't go anymore because there's people blocking it or something, or a Pokemon blocking it, Snorlax maybe. So then you have to venture down, you go and look at the towns around this loop, and then you come back up, you go across the next quarter, and then you sort of loop around the towns to that bit because it's blocked again, and come back, and you know, you keep going. So essentially, your map is like, you know, a sort of 2/8, if that makes sense. I mean, I think that's a really good idea. Another good idea for a route for me would be the Tiananmen Glass Skywalk. Have you seen that? I think that's a hell of an idea for a route. Can you imagine that? You're walking along a mountain, basically. You have to walk up a mountain on this glass skywalk. You're taking on different trainers. The actual artwork of it, you can see everything underneath you. And when you get to the top, you climb through the cave to get to the bottom. I think that's a hell of a good idea. Next up, in number 5 spot is Greece. Not only do I think setting a Pokemon region in an ancient time, like ancient Greece, would be absolutely fantastic with an entirely separate amount of items, because obviously like Pokeballs and potion things wouldn't existed. You'd have fresh water, you know, you'd have different remedies, berries would still exist, you know, there'd be stuff to do. You could have a hell of a lot more ancient type items in there and set it in somewhere like Greece. I think that would be really good. I think that would be spot on. But if you were to set it in a modern day, you could still sort of use the style of their history in a newer setting. Of course, Athens would be the centre point of the entire region, and of course the Acropolis of Athens will be the centre point of that town as well. It's a perfect place for a gym, actually. Not only that, I think a place like Meteora is a perfect spot for a small town. Maybe even have a gym there. But speaking of gyms, I think the Windmills in Cyclades would be brilliant place for a town that's based off of like wind, for example. I mean, you could have the windmills there, every house to be a windmill, and that's how they get their power. It's like an electricity free city, and I think having a gym in there would be even more awesome, especially if you make that gym the flying type gym. I mean, what other type is it going to be? Next up in number 4 we have Australia. Much like the Acropolis in Athens, Sydney Opera House in Sydney would be the centre point in the centre city of this entire region. I know Sydney's not the capital, it's Canberra, but Sydney Opera House, that's the place that's got sort of like the most recognition. I think it would be a great place for a Pokemon lab. Most Pokemon labs are just buildings in towns and cities or villages or whatever, but I think if you were to base a Pokemon lab off of the Sydney Opera House, it would be perfect. You could have a lovely internal conservation area like you get in the Aether Paradise, just without the controversy of course, and it would be just a fun place to be. Can you imagine, you know, you start your game, you walk up to this building, and instead of it just being like a square building with a professor in it, you look up and it's the most beautiful building in the entire region, and that's where you're going to get your first Pokemon. Other good places would be the Great Barrier Reef. This would be great for coral type Pokemon, maybe even some new ones, get a few water grass types going in there, I'm not entirely sure. But it'd be very colourful, very full of life, very artistic, and just generally awesome. Speaking of roots again, I think Ayers Rock, or Uluru, whatever you want to call it, it's just a big rock in the middle of nothing. Can you imagine if you were blocked to the left and the right, and ahead of you is just a big rock, and to go through it, it is literally a cave. I mean, it's perfect. There could even be a point where you get to the top and there's a town on the top of the cave, but you can't access that till you've got another HM of Strength or Rock Smash or something. But there's potential there for something. But the main reason why this is in the number 4 spot is because of the animals there. There are loads of animals for you to actually just design Pokemon from. I mean, you got kangaroos. I know we've got Kangaskhan, but there's a potential for a better kangaroo Pokemon. You got wallabies, wombats, you got the Tasmanian devil, you got all sorts. I mean, the list will go on for Australian animals. It's incredible. So much potential for Pokemon, for the animals. That's why it's in number 4. In number 3, we have Italy. But let's go straight to the point. The Roman Colosseum. Do I really need to say what is a good location to use in a Pokemon game? I'm imagining basing a little bit of that off of the history, so you can enter the Colosseum, and in the first room you've got a trainer that uses a lion in like a Pyroar or maybe even Incineroar or something, you know, and in the next room you've got someone that uses a leopard, you know, like Liepard, and basically in all of the rooms you take on Pokemon that the ancient Romans used to take on in the Colosseum. Of course, also you've got Venice. We do have towns that use water. Obviously we've got Pacifidlog in Generation 3, and also in Generation 3 we've got Sutopolis City, but none of these really have like the water as the pathways for the town. Can you imagine, you know, having to swim on a Pokemon or use a gondola to get around a town because all of the pathways are water? I think that would be fantastic. Of course, it would be home to a water type gym, wouldn't it? Yet another brilliant location for a town would be Pompeii. I know it doesn't exist anymore, but you could incorporate this into the legendary story. I've actually thought about this in detail. You could have the volcano near the city, which is unaffected and fine, but in the volcano lies a fire type legendary Pokemon, you know, the one for the box art, the one for the game, and the evil team in the region are trying to awaken this beast. They're trying to awaken it and use it just to control everything. So essentially you have to enter this volcano, stop the team, and before the volcano erupts you have to catch this Pokemon, otherwise that town perishes. There's potential again. Coming in at number 2, we have Scandinavia. You just have to look at pictures of this place to realise that Scandinavia is absolutely beautiful. It's perfect for a region. It's got grasslands, it's got a little bit of desert, it's got some icy, frosty regions, so you can introduce a host of really good ice types. You've got the Oresund underwater bridge. I mean, what a place for a route that is. You'll just be walking on a route, dip underneath, and then you've got this clear tube basically that you're in, you know, like you get in zoos and sea life centres, and there'll be loads of trainers in there that want to battle you. You know, they'll be using, you know, probably water type things, but either way, surrounded by that scenery, battling someone, that would be awesome. As well as this, you've got the Rabjörg Mile, which is just, I'm assuming, a mile of uncharted sandy territory. That's a great place to introduce some sort of more ground types or what have you, and it's got a lighthouse at the end. If that isn't a route, then I don't know what is. And of course, as well as this, you've got the Atlantic Road in Norway. This would be a great place for sort of rock types and have another route for it. Just loads of rocks going over water, and it's a really jagged route. There's not like a straight line you have to go through. You have to follow the rocks up, you know, maybe use Rock Smash or Strength or something. But either way, try and navigate yourself through this. It'd be a great way to try and confuse people coming back on yourself. You've got to go up here, around there. Nice little mazy type place for a route, but either way, another potential route. And of course, as well as all of that, you've got the Garanga Fjord, if I've pronounced that correctly as well. Apologies if not. Can you imagine a town based in this particular area? It would be incredible. What a scenic place to choose. And my number 1 is not going to be said in this video. I have got pages and pages of notes on this region, so many individual places in this region that could be used for places in a Pokemon region, and I'm just so passionate about it. So much so that I'm going to have to give it its own video. Sorry to keep you in suspense, but for now, that's where this video ends. So, until next time when I tell you about number 1, thank you for listening, have a good day, and I'll see you later. If you're interested in little trinkets like these keyrings, then please do keep up with my Facebook page, Twitter and YouTube channel. I'm going to start selling them soon. I'll even make a Pokemon of your choice. I've got Mimikyu there as an example. But if you're interested, keep an eye out.